up, guys? Let's wait for some people to come in here. Thank you. Thank you very much. Happy to be here. Started off in like a few minutes. We're gonna go over the donk basses for sure. Just wait for 7 so everybody is here. Two more minutes. Okay guys, happy to see you all here. My name is Alrt and I go by the name Alrt. Let's go over what I did in this track front to back. Let's start from the kick and the kick top. I did this blasting in my ears in a club. Definitely, me too. So I want to show you my approach to how I produce music. Of course, it might not be the best, or like why quality is 480 ATP. I'm not sure about it. It should be more. So my approach with making this kind of music is very simple. and practical. I look at it as like I go for what I want and I just bring it there. Sorry about that. I think my experience maybe is a benefit for me since it's like I've been doing this for like 15 years, maybe 20 even. And I just approach it with like exactly what I want and I don't experiment too much. So let's just start it over. Here I have the kick, which is a second. You can see here I have the kick bottom, which is basically just this area. And then I added on top a top. It sounds like that. And if you look at it it's just this area. So it's kind of completing the whole kick. I do this sometimes when I just can't find a kick that I like, so I have this kick which I made and I just cut the lows. I wanted just a different low for it, so I made that low for that. And I like the top of this one, so I use that top of this one. Going over to what we have here, of course, is the donk. Well, the donk is made in massive, and I use this preset a lot. I've made it a while ago. Let's take off show you oscillator by oscillator. This is the first oscillator on needle. Second oscillator sounds like this. Third oscillator sounds like this. Put them all together. You get this. Of course, you have the modulation oscillator that kind of gives it the color of the donk. If you can hear it, what it does, it's ring modulator on the second oscillator. Now the low pass filter is just closing it off, and you get this kind of donk bass. Very simple, I think, to make that. There is many ways of making this sound, but that's just how I made it. I put a shaper on it and also a tube and some dimension expander. Now, because I didn't have enough sub, I thought, if you can see here, it just wasn't enough for me. Instead of pushing it in the EQ, I just added a sub. Very, very low sub. Just adds the little beef, you know. Going over to what I have going on here.
Make your music stand out, get more views, and way more engagement. Bring your music to life. Get Music Visualizer in every format, even for social media. Get started today. The link is in the description.
My percussion section, which is the clap, percussion loop, more like a trance kind of percussion loop. I like using those a lot, kind of make the track run. Second percussion loop together. Close that, just on the middle. Another close that, running 16 loop. And an open hat. Of course a crash. It comes a lot. Beyond that, we have this ad-lib over here. Got some sidechaining to it with the LFO tools. And then just pitch down. We have some stabs over here. Enough nothing much. As I told you already before, I'm very practical in what I use. So I wanted a stab there, I just brought a stab. Didn't try to intricate it too much or to make it. It's very simplified, the track, and this is how I like to work. The ad-lib is actually from Splice. I think I've heard a few tracks using that ad-lib, so it's WR Vox loop. Yeah, it's like, it's very simple, and I think some producers are like more technical than me, and I try to stay very simple and very dance floor simple, as you can see. So let's try to see what else we have got going on here. I use this sound a lot, so this police siren. It's running on the beat. Snare roll. Another snare roll. Together. Good. Now, I like to do this kind of stuff, which is like, it's not a fake dropout, it's actually just a drop of 2 small bars and then back to it, but I keep all of it. So usually people just do a fake out and just continue after, but I just go on with making the whole loop again. Now this hoovers, I like working them in audio. Makes it easier for me to cut them and pitch them. So we have this one. And this one is kind of the answer to that one. Pitched up. This is basically the drop. Nothing to it. A few other sirens here. Very much in the back of the track. And then sweep up. Of course, the famous wheel up. Lovely sound. Have a little turbo brake here. Very small. And a vocal.
Like a bonfire, I got more fire. Like a bonfire, I got more fire. Like a bonfire.
And here's the vocal. You can see what I did with it here. I just cut the lows, cut a little bit of the highs, delay and chorus. I like using chorus on my vocals. It just, I'll show you what it does. Kind of throws it off and brings it back in the track a little bit, which I like. Some people use reverb for that, but I like to use chorus. Throw in this some delay going off here and going into the breakdown. fix. Did you snake plays your stuff at all? How did you get in first in contact with him? Any tips of networking with high-profile artists and such? So, yeah, to be honest, it started off with him playing this track. I didn't even know. It just kind of surprised me when he was playing it in Ultra in Korea, I think. And after that, he just came to speak with me. I think with this kind of stuff like speaking with like high-profile artists like this, it's better to get their attention with good music. So if you can make something that actually takes their attention, they will come and speak with you most of the time. So he just came and sent me a message and was a super nice guy. And we just kept in touch, you know. What else? Is the big orchestral hit on the breakdown a sample? Yes, it is a sample. This one, you mean? It's a sample. You can make this by like using Contact or... Because it's a few things together, I think. It's like a sweep up and then an impact together with a brass. And then we have another string here. And then we have on top of that a high string. Always keeps the tension up, this high string. It's good. The vocal. One of them is low. One of them is high. Together. Can build up. Very, very simple. Now I started especially with this track because I know how simply it's made. And we're gonna go after to Marrakesh, which is a little bit more intricate. Always good to throw some breakbeat inside. I came from like the music of the 90s kind of. I'm 35 years old, so I grew up on listening to artists like Prodigy and Chemical Brothers, and it's a big, big inspiration to my music. They used to use this kind of breakbeat stuff a lot. Snares, of course, the same one from before. Another snare. As you can see, it's all native Ableton EQs. It's very, very simple processing. I think the secret of this is just find a good snare that you like and sounds good from the beginning, and then you don't need to touch it too much and process. I guess it's just with more experience as you get it, you're gonna find sounds that you like immediately like. Snare this one together. We have also this tab here. Where can I get this old school drum and wacky vocal samples? I never know where to find them. So most of these samples come from old school sample packs, actually. Zero G and a lot of stuff like that. I like to use old school sample packs. So you wouldn't find it in Splice probably, because those are stuff that are like been gone for the last 15 years, 10 years. You should try and Google old school sample packs, and then you will find all those wacky samples and stabs and stuff like, and this kind of vocal that you can hear. Like today, I just find it's easier for me with my style to find this kind of stuff with the old school samples. Let's see what I did here. Kick is building up also, of course.
All my people from the front to back.
Thank you guys, appreciate it. really happy you enjoy playing my tracks. I'm here for that. Okay, so what I did in the ending is you have this bass line, the same bass line from the beginning. Now if you see, I put these high notes on a different channel because if you put it in the same channel, it's just like not enough highs in them. So I made another one and I added these 2 notches here. Now without those notches, kind of not enough. So this is extending those frequencies. Can you show how long your kick section is going? Okay, so with most of it here is with LFO tools or with can you say more about your hoovers? Your synths or is it samples? Sometimes my hoovers are synths and sometimes, you know what, let me go back to Morgan first. The length of the sidechain. So you can probably see it here in the. You can see this. It's very quick in this. You see, it's very quick one going. I push the frequency, this is coming from the kick, so I push the frequency up a little bit, so just that tiny bit. Once you do it, it's just shorter. It makes the input of the kick shorter, so it's faster also. So if I do this, you will see it's much longer. Now it changes with especially with the bassline and stuff. In this case, the bassline doesn't need any sidechain because it's an offbeat bassline, so it's already in the middle. You can see here, so it doesn't need any sidechain. But with other stuff like, let's say the closed hats, you will have an LFO tool, and you can see what's going on here. Basically just a little bit before the middle. Going over to the next question, can you say more about your hoovers? You synth it or it's samples? Okay, so Maxim, it's depends what I want. Sometimes it will be synths and sometimes it will be samples. In this case, it's samples because I wanted to get this kind of like Dominator hoover going on. So what I do with them, if you can see the process, I have a glue compressor here just to tighten it up a little bit, reverb, delay, and an EQ. And I just cut them up a lot. Let's say this one here. Now you can play as you want with the pitch, it's gonna be cool. All the point of hoover is kind of being all over the place, you know, and I like them tight, so I always take small pieces like that and make it really small. Let's say, even if you take I'll take a new channel for this. Let's say this one is the synth sample. This is basically a Dominator hoover. Now I can start with it and start messing with it and changing pitch. Now every time you can take a different beat from a different part of it, it'd be cool. So basically, would love to see your second drop on Feel Your Energy with Kelo Migby. If you have time, dude, that track. And thank you very much, man. It's very similar to this track, actually. The second drop, very, very similar to this track. It's kind of on the same mentality of going very simple but effective. What is your mastering process? So, for this track, actually for every track I do, I try once before I, let me just remove the master and the limiter. So if you can hear it, if you can hear already, it's not so much different than what it was when it was mastered. I try to get to this point already before the mastering. So let me just open the analyzer here and play it. If you can see, the levels are already pretty much where they're supposed to be. And then I just use a master channel. A master channel for like just compressing it a little bit. So with and this is without. Not much difference, but it's just pushing a little bit dynamics in. And then I use a limiter. I suggest you using invisible limiter. I don't even push it. It's just basically limiting it. Can you talk about the overall top loop drum groove? Because I think for speed house it's not a typical hi-hat clap groove. Well, I come from like an era when hard house was a thing, and it was like kind of a mixture of house mentality, I guess, with trance. So I like the washing machine kind of loops going on. So I use this kind of stuff a lot. You can also find this in my sample packs and everything. Washing machine going fast, you know, and then hats and clap. And of course the open hats, which is the most important if you want the track to run. It's a little bit different in speed house, I guess, because it's more like kind of more like a fast bass house or garage vibe to it than hard house or trance. I think it's just more like a little bit more shuffled usually with speed house. So it's like which this one is which I personally like better, you know, but it's a matter of taste. When I kind of go for the speed house sound, I would do more like shuffled grooves with like I show you something like, let's say, let's just grab a snare here. Let's say this one. So you want to do something kind of like oops, sorry. Kind of like you know, bass house but fast. And even shuffle it a little bit, so this is kind of like more speed house vibe, and you will have less this percussion loop. Stuff like this mostly, and goes back and it goes on and on like that. It's a matter of taste, I guess. You can do speed house like this also. It's mostly about the bass line in the end, is it? Would love to see the second drop and talk about the overall top. If we did that, what is the best mixing tip you can give us for mixing different instruments together which are playing at the same time, so everything is clear? Big fan. Thank you, Dom. What is the best mixing tip? I think you should know the ranges of where everything should be from the beginning. So kick is here, hats are here. If you want information like instruments and synths and stuff, they are here. So once you know that, you can play between them. So let's say you have two very high pitched or high frequency synths that come on the same spot together. Unless you really want it and it sounds good for you, you better not do it. Just try to play between them. It's basically what this does. This what you call it, hoovers here. If I'll show you the analyzer. It kind of completes each. It's kind of like a question and answer kind of thing, you know. And you always wanna do that. It's just more satisfying to the ear, to kind of like complete areas of frequency which weren't there before, and then change between them. It's interesting, but you can do it also a lot with pitching, you know. So basically, let's say I want another kind of answer to that. So I'll take this and just drop it a lot in the pitch, and now you'll see it moving more. Second, sorry. Now this makes it like very satisfying for the listener. So first, what you need to do to know how to mix it like well, know where it is. Most of the time you can hear, but it's better if you look, you know, and you see where everything touches what. So it's exactly the same thing with the kick, but in a different mentality. So like we said before, the kick is a bottom and a top. The bottom is only here, right? So we have missing here. We wanna complete it, but in good ratio. So this one here, the kick will be exactly completion of it, you know. And sometimes you would get a kick which is like this, let's say. This is for me a little bit too much highs, I guess. So like this I can actually mix it exactly as I want, instead of doing an EQ, which is also okay, but I guess just having a natural kind of balance is better. Alrt, big inspiration since I've heard about your tracks from Joyride. I noticed that there is not much processing on your sounds in this track. Is it typical that you keep most of your sounds clear? Especially curious about sub-bass, bass and stabs. So, as I mentioned before, I'm trying always to keep it very, very simple. If I'll need a process, it's because I want something to sound different than what it is, basically. So, let's say I have a sound like this, right? I want it like this, so there is no reason to process it a lot, unless I want it to sound different and I want it like, I don't know, wow, or something like this. I actually process it to get the results I want, and not just because you need it. So like, this doesn't need, there is nothing here, you know? I can start doing ODT on it and stuff, and a second. I just don't see the point. You get what I'm saying? Sometimes I will see the point, or like I say, okay, I need this to be more tight or less dynamic or something, you know? But even you can see it in the wave here. It's just good already. Yeah, unless it was going like this, let's say, you know, and I want it to go more or less, I will do. You get what I'm saying? So I'm kind of trying to stay always within my needs. So very practical, in the sense that like, if this doesn't need it, I won't put it. And I think it's very important to know what you want and choose those sounds to work with. There is a thing to like grabbing like a kind of, I don't know, a hi-hat and making a whistle from it or whatever, you know. There is a thing to it, you know. You're creating something new and it's interesting. But in the sense of this track, I didn't do much of that. I try to stay within my limits with what I know how to do. And I guess after a few tracks that you make in the kind of the same genre, if it's kind of your thing, you're gonna just continue perfecting it until you come to a point which you don't need. What synths you can recommend for epic old school Hoover like Dominator Hoover in your track? So you have a bunch of those. Have you heard about Rave Generator? Rave Generator is an old school synth. It comes with tons of Hoovers. Let me show it here. Rave Generator. So as you can see, it's like a sampler, and you get all the old school stabs here. So second. And you can mix it with the other ones. The famous T99. Basically, now what's interesting about this, since you can take all those ones and just mix them with other ones. So let's say Poltergeist. This is two together now. This one and this one. You can tune it. What's interesting about old school Hoovers and stuff, it's usually well sampled from each other and from synths that used to have that thing, you know. So you used to take the sample and just basically change the pitch, add some stuff, and with some with time, those became like classic stabs. So this synth or sampler actually just incorporates all of those together, and I work with this a lot. What else? Let's say stabs. Yeah, this is very useful for Hoovers. If you want that kind of old school vibe, you know, you can make the Hoovers and synths in any synth. It's pretty much a saw wave with the. What inspired this track? You said you like to keep things very simple without much experimentation. So where does your process start with this track, for example? And how do you decide how to build and expand your ideas without overcomplicating the track? Let me see more. Or getting sidetracked by yourself. So I remember finding this sample.
From the front to back.
Finding this sample, and I usually start from making the theme of the track, so the main idea, and I will never start with building the kick and bass. I think what happens like that is like once you have the kick and bass, you kind of build around it, which is kind of like counterintuitive to what you're supposed to be doing, which is like the idea of the track. You start from the idea of the track, so the vocal and the bass behind it and some break beats, and you get the idea. and now you start thinking about where you want the track to go. So for me, it starts with like finding the right sample or finding the right inspiration in old school music, like I said before, Prodigy or Chemical Brothers. And I don't know if most of you know, but I come from the world of psytrance and trance. So I used to produce for years psytrance. I still do. I have another project called Coming Soon. Should go and check it out. And I think this combination of of my mentality from that era is kind of like what made this idea of going into this style. What advice would you give to somebody that has trouble turning work in progress? Okay, so turning work in progress into a final product. This is actually, it's a point you have to go through. It's a point you have to go through. And it's like you just have to finish it and like decide that this is the right thing to do. So basically sometimes you will have like a drop and you don't have the idea of the track, which is like the theme idea of the track. Leave the drop alone and start doing the theme of the track. With thinking about the drop in the back of your head, but still try to get away from it and just stop overthinking it. Don't overthink it. I think it's important to, at one point with a work in progress, if you can't finish it, is for me basically if I have a work in progress and I like stuck on it for weeks and stuff, I just leave it. You just start something new. And once you start something new and suddenly you say, oh, yo, I could finish it like that, it comes. I think because you're stuck on a work in progress, it's just getting you to overthink about like, what can I do? How long can it be? And also use a lot of reference track. There's nothing wrong about that, I'm not saying copy, but at least use a structure that that works. And then put your track into that. So take a build up from one track, take a breakdown from one track, and then put your drop. And then you can reimagine how it can be with your sounds. What else do I see here? Any tips on finalizing a mix? As I said before, I think it's more important to get to a level of mix before the mastering. So never count on the mastering to make your track sounds good. It's just, it won't work. You'll push it, you'll lose dynamics, you make it too loud, and sometimes you just lose creativity that you had before the mastering. So with the mix, just try to reference a lot of tracks. Try to get as much as you can to the level of the track without the mastering. Then the master is going to be a piece of cake. You're going to just throw, I don't know, a limiter on it and it's going to be done. And it's nothing wrong about having a master with nothing in it. Maybe just an EQ to like have a little bit more highs or something. There's nothing wrong. Not every master has to have compressors and stereo wideners and stuff. Not everyone. If it sounds already good. And for me, it's important like to use the analyzer. So 1 second. So I look at the analyzer. God damn it. Sorry. There you go. Let's play this and I'll show you what's going on. I look at the levels and I make sure the levels are at the right levels as like my reference track or whatever. And I guess like once I know it's in the right level, I don't try to push it more than it is. I think it's just important to reference a lot of tracks. Now, I know most of us don't have like amazing studios. I was lucky to have like a studio so I can trust it and what comes out of it. but most of the time your room will lie to you. And it's okay because, some studios are $1 million studios and great, you just put it and you know exactly what's going on. But most of us work in studios that are like bedrooms, and I think you should reference tracks and see a lot. Sometimes the room will add like a tone. Let's say to your snare, you have a snare, it's like boom, and you sure the snare is amazing, but it's the room just adding a tone to it, and then you hear it in like, I don't know, headphones or some in a friend's house or the car, and you're like, wow, what's wrong with it? Or sometimes you'll push something too much because you don't have enough in your room, and what will happen is basically you'll have too much of it or too little of it. Is the master you send to distribution or you send the mix to master engineer? Did you care about the? I do care about them. LUFS of final master. I do care about them, but this is the master I sent to distribution. I don't use the mastering engineer, never, because I think, especially with what I do, I think I like to work around mastering issues inside the track, if you know what I mean. So if I see some area just doesn't respond well to my master, I will just fix it before the master. And this is something a mastering engineer can't do unless he's doing the mix as well. I think it's important to just get to a good level of mix, and even without a master, you're happy with it, because the master will not save the track. I'm telling you that right now, there's no chance. There's a lot of sidechain or LFO on the track. There is mostly LFO tool on the track, but there is this little part here of second. Because there is this little dubstep kind of part. So I kind of had to use what you call it, a compressor with sidechain. So you can see it here. Usually I will sidechain also the snare, but I felt it's just not needed here. It's like the Hoover is touching the snare pretty good. And also, again, sometimes this is important to know. I feel like sometimes if you don't need you listen to it and you don't need the sidechain over there, just don't put it. I feel like sometimes people would like do stuff because it's like needed to be done. And music is just not like that. Music is just like needs to be natural to the one making it and the one listening to it. So sometimes you don't need to smash it with an OTT. It's just not needed. Sometimes you do. But when it's not needed, it just will make it worse. You like something, don't try to change it by processing it too much. And I'm going back to the same idea of just being very simple in your technique. Get to something, because especially in this style, you get what you hear, It sounds like what I did here is like just very simple, It's just the point of finding those right sounds to do it with, and not taking a sound which is not right and trying to make it right. I try to avoid that. Any more questions on this track before I move on to the next track, Marrakesh, which is a little bit more interesting, I'll be honest. Let's see if we have something on this track. Okay, so no more questions on this track. No. Thank you, Alex. Yeah, this one is very minimal. Can you show us the difference between the first and second build-up drop and how you add variations? Yes, of course. So, first build-up. Now let's see the second one.
All my people from the front to back.
I think the difference between them, the build-up is pretty much the same, or I think it's just longer. It starts earlier, kind of like, if it was here, it would start here. As you can see. Is the kick already coming in. And the difference in the drop itself, so the build-up is just longer. Difference in the drop itself is the transposition and the bass. I like to make the ending of each track kind of like the explosion of the track. Even though like most DJs that play the track just don't get to the point of playing the second drop. I like to play with the transposition of the track. It's kind of like the crescendo, I guess, of the track. I left everything the same. The ad-lib, same thing. I just did this transposition in the bass. So basically it starts from a different key on the scale of this, which one is this? It starts from a different scale. I would also always like change a little bit of the vocals also and stuff. So in this case, it's just a little change between the first swap and the second one. How to avoid this harmony when you use tabs overs, because they often not sound like solo notes. Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. Well, most of the time you mean this harmony with like the bass usually, right? Just low cut it, and then you feel less this harmony, because sometimes it's like a chord or something. Try first to like pitch them to a point when you think it's harmonic, and if it's still like this, just cut, low cut or high cut the part which is like sometimes this harmonic. So sometimes you'll have the top note in like, I don't know, like C, and at the bottom note is like, I don't know, F. Doesn't work together in that sense, and you can just get rid of the C by high cutting it, or getting rid of the F by low cutting it. The sound, the frequencies are like, let's say the F would be here, the C would be here. Just concentrate the EQ on the F or on the E. You get what I'm saying? What else? Do you ever use parallel compression? I find it really helps to boost the sound. I do use that sometimes. I'm pretty sure with this master is on parallel. If you can see, it's actually in 40%, which means it's on parallel. It does help. It does help a lot. I would sometimes do, with compressor, usually I just do it on vocals. Sometimes you wanna some of the clean signal and some of the compressed signal together. It helps. I think it's a good thing to do on drums and stuff also. Anything else before I move to Marrakesh? To sum this track up, I think this is a good example of like how simple production can be if you know what you're looking for and you know what kind of sounds you want to use that in that production. Experimental is amazing, I love some producers are blowing my mind with how experimental they are and how they can manipulate sound. I didn't do this in this track for sure. Hope you liked the explanation of this track. And let's go to Marrakesh. Don't save. Okay.
Make your music stand out, get more views, and way more engagement. Bring your music to life. Get Music Visualizer. In every format, even for social media. Get started today. The link is in the description.
Let's get right into it. We'd love to know why you chose to go for the anti-build in this almost still works honestly. I don't know, I guess it just worked. In this track Marrakesh was like, first of all I found this sample that pretty much, you know, made the track in my mind. This pretty much made the track, like I knew what I was going to, but then I had tons of issues with this mix. And I'll start with what happened basically. I wanted to get the kick very punchy, you know, kind of punch in. The LFO on the sub in the second half of the job. Signy, can you show how you did that? Which one? Ah, here. I'm not sure which LFO you mean. The LFO on the sub. It's a panning. It's a gate with an auto pan that I did. That's one of the issues I had with this track. I just had the sub going like all the time, and it just, when I was listening back and forth to it, it was like just too much. So I had to kind of give it some kind of release, but keep the sub there. So I did this one. It helped it a lot. Now, what's the issue I had? So I have the kick, snare, and sub here. First, the kick was a mission, because every kick I used, it was just wasn't sounding good, you know, and I wanted to like really punch through the mix. And the way I walked through it was basically I took all the rest of the track, which is like the vocals and the other extra sound, everything except the sub, and I just cut the lows out of it a lot. And now I compressed it a lot to kind of lose dynamics a little bit, but then put sidechain on it. So basically every time you can see, without me playing the kick, out where the kick lands and the snare. So it's heavily compressed in, but the dynamic of it is the sidechain with the kick. I found that to be like the kind of savior of this mix, which drove me crazy. And then I just had to do something. I just did that, and once I was doing that, I didn't have the compression on, so it was just, you notice it's just not enough. It's like actually too dynamic, so I wanted to have it a little bit less dynamic. I just pushed it with the actually the master chain I used for this track as well, and the glue compressor. Every time when the kick hits, it just cuts through. Another thing I did with the kick, I can show you the kick by itself. Also compressed it because I wanted, going back to what we said before, I compressed it because I wanted it to sound a certain way, not because I thought it's good to have compression on a kick. It didn't have it in the beginning, and I just wanted it faster. Why don't you compress the highs on your master with that ambi compressor? I tell you exactly why I did it. In this one, you mean? It's because when I did it, it was just too much, and it just was. I wanted to push the low and mid without touching the highs on this multiband, and this was kind of an experimentation back and forth with me mixing it in, and it just didn't work. So I assumed that I was just compressing the hats too much. I just removed the compression on the hats. Now, another cool thing I did, and this is a pretty dope trick. If you can see the kick here, there is a small, very, very small hi-hat coming. Now, if you hear it by itself, it's barely a click, but then when it comes with the kick, it comes just before the kick. It adds this top on the kick, which I really needed. Without. Just a little bit too round. Now there is many ways to achieve that, but I wanted it to come before, like kind of a suction thing. So I added this small noise of the hat. You get what I'm saying? So if it would have been sitting on the kick, it's like just, let me just push the delay. You can see? It just doesn't have this suction thing anymore, and this helped it a lot. Is the sub covering the mid bass frequency range, and can we see your sub bass patch? Of course you can. It's actually just a sub. We remove the compressor. Let's see what's going on here. It's not covering any of the mid, just 2 octaves of the sub and bass. And it's got a lot of pitching to it. On top of the pitch there is on the sub. Let me show you the patch and what I did with the sub here. So the sub is very simple sine wave with tube, clip, some feedback, and actually, yeah, I didn't use the pitch on this one. And a little bit of dimension expander. I like to put my subs a little bit on the sides, you know. And what I did later is I cut off all the highs. Let's remove this one, it's not needed. I cut off all the highs. I overdrive it a little bit. And if you can see it here, it's actually going through the sides a little bit. Second. You can see here, it's not in the mono. It goes a little bit, kind of plays on the sides. That's cool. It kind of gives it that movement. And initially it was just mono, but it was just too how do you explain? Too rough on the ears, kind of thing, you know. So now it's kind of moving in between the sides, and of course there is the sidechain on it. Oh, what I did. Now, I don't know if anybody does this here, but the way I did the sidechain for this track is I have like a small patch from operator, which basically sounds like this. It's basically a click, and this is the signal I give to. This is basically there is like one of those clicks on every kick and snare, you can see. And this is the signal I'm giving the thing here now, the compressor here. Now why did I do that? Because I have maximum control on it. So like you can see how it's affecting the, I can do whatever I want. If I want like really tight, I've got maximum control on it. Can do whatever I want with the attack and release. Do you worry about the popping that occurs with the sub sidechains at all? Sometimes I do. In this case, I didn't really. I would try to get rid of it as much as I can, but you will never hear it in this case because the kick is just too much for you to even notice. Basically what happens, instead of this click, there is the kick. And the same with the snare. The snare also was a big issue here. Drove me crazy. So now, the snare was a great snare, but then the top and middle of the snare was kind of like too long. So like I always like, I always heard a little bit of like, and it didn't work with just cutting the sides of it. So what I did here is, it's a D-cup snare, by the way. What I did here is divided the snare to bottom, middle, and top. And this is the bottom of the snare, which was like the actual thing that you see. And I opened the width of it a little bit, so it's wider. And then the middle of the snare, I cut some of the, I used BX Digital here to just cut some of the stereo, the sides, low cutted it, and then the top. So I could get rid like that of like every frequency I really didn't want, so together just sounds more tight. And if I show you just the kick that's the bottom one by itself, without and where is the kick? Is this a kick I made a long time ago? And I actually exported it with some noise on top of it, and this is what I got. Now together with this kick is like not the same without that small click from before. So you can hear it's adding that, kind of making it less round. So this kick has been through a lot. And okay, let's go over to the bass, what I did with the bass again, sub again. So basically the only channels that actually playing on this area of the mix are the kick, snare, sub, and another snare, second snare that I have here. Now everything else is just like, I just moved it with low cut, and really helped me in this mix. Usually I don't do that, but I just had to in this mix. So You can see I have an automation for the auto pen. It's starting to like vibrate, and then it goes to the other one. Together. How do you get your mix to sound good in mono? Well, the way to get your mix sounding good in mono is basically a good natural balance between the stereo and the mono. So you need to work on both of them. I always check. I have like a button here that puts it on mono, and there's this little big knob I have here. I press on mono, and if I realize there is something more on the side, I'll balance it to be a little bit more in the mono. So then once it's on mono, it kind of sounds the same. It will never sound exactly the same, but you can get to a really close really close product with the balance of the stereo and the sides and the mono. You can't have too much stereo on something. It sounds great in the studio, it's still flying, you know. But you need to have it in the mono again. This is why actually I have, if you see here in these two analyzers I've got here, this is the stereo and this is the sides. Now when I listen in mono, I can see this in mono here, and I can see the sides, exactly what they're doing here. So if I see this is like too high, I have my limit in the eyes, I know where it is supposed to be. So that's what I do. Can you talk about the theme percussion you use? Okay, so I used one hat here, like a ride kind of thing, and then very simple hats, one hat, and then I have a clapper. The stab bass I have here, it's already not really a bass because I cut it off, you see what I mean? But the sub is kind of completing it to be sounding like a bass. 1 second. You can see it here. Doesn't have bass anymore. And then together with the sub, it completes it. What else I have here? Again, as I told you before, I like to play on the frequency ranges of stuff. So this is the same sound, just pitched down. So that's the game I did with that one. Vocal. Now the vocal, remember I told you, processing only when needed. So I wanted this vocal to be very, very compressed and a little bit overdrived. So I've got tons of stuff going on here. I put a limiter in the beginning of this just to push the dynamics. Then I overdrived it, put some chorus in it, compressed it a little bit more, EQ'd it, reverb, another limiter, another compressor, the sidechain compressor, a transient shaper, and another small EQ to push the highs at the end, and another compressor. So yeah, I kind of overdid it on this one, but especially because I wanted to hear it like. You get what I'm saying? It's basically like an instrument here, the vocal. So I wanted it to sound like that. Where did I get the vocals? These vocals are Easy E, actually. Yeah, I know. It's a lot of processing on this vocal, but again, I really wanted it to be the certain point, and sometimes I start throwing stuff, and now I need more compression, and now if I add more compression, I need more chorus, and I add more this, and I need more shaper and whatever, you know. So that's what I did. All the rest of the little bits here are like pretty simple processing: compressor, EQ, chorus. Then pretty simple laser just with an EQ. Some Tarbuka noise. Valhalla on it. And then jump a little bit. Open the highs on it. What did you use for the choirs at the beginning? Those choirs are samples. But if you want good choirs, your Contact is the way to go. And there is this bell. And a bass pad that I took from Spire. Very simple, changes a little bit sound position here. Back to them. Little ad-lib lick here, also a sample. So let me show you what else can I show you here. All the hats together make a lot of noise. And clap is sidechain, so you don't hear everyone, but I kind of wanted it like that. Just for a little bit extra noise on top. You have this small percussion here. What was this? It was a lead basically there. Can you go into the timbres in the section towards the end? You mean right here? Same ones like before. just running 16. You can see they are very, very wide in the stereo. Same thing, just I added this small cut of the jumper. Kick is running like a Jersey kind of club kick. The bongos. This is how they sound originally. They called jambes. This is how they sound originally. I cut it a little bit. And, this is pitched up a little bit, so now I push the highs on them. I didn't low cut them. No, it was a loop like this. That was the loop, I think. I'm pretty sure. This was the loop. And I just cut it. Again, this is just kind of bounced. But then I added EQ. No, didn't low cut it, but just low shelf. And then high shelf. And then opened the sides of it. Those jumpers I got in Splice. Pretty easy, just write jumpers on Splice, you're gonna find those ones. Usually they come very dry, so you need to make them kind of sound bigger, or the size of them, and just use like any kind of stereo widener, or just open most stereo if they have any. So that's what I did. Just open stereo for it. Without it, it's kind of dry and boring. And you don't want to open reverb on them because you don't want to lose this kind of like, how to explain it? You don't want to lose the real grit to it, you know? Use any sweeps in these tracks? I definitely did. You see? I have this one. By the way, most of the samples you can find, like those drums and everything, you can find in my sample pack, the ones that are not the samples. This is a Tornado siren that I use a lot. What else? This one, sweep up. Yep, those are the ones I used, I think. Well, I think with yeah, I come from a different world in this kind of mentality of dropping OTT. What I do usually is, like, if I want that effect, I will drop a limiter, push it a lot, and then kind of EQ it after. So it's kind of the same mentality of what it's doing. I think the advantage of using something that is not OTT, it's just you have more, you can do more with it. You can do notches and stuff, which is kind of hard with the OTT, or even not possible. I can notch things away or more, add, and I think it's just, for me at least, it's more predictable to use other stuff than OTT. But then I used OTT on all of this here. Oh, didn't I? I used OTT on something here. Sometimes I won't use OTT, but I will use the multiband. I kind of use it in my own presets. Are you going to do any demo feedback? Well, maybe. Again, I'll show you. No, needed. Yeah, I might do demo feedbacks. Yeah, definitely, very possible. I wanted to talk with you again about the kind of creative process of this track, or actually any track I'm doing. I think I start from kind of figuring out where I'm gonna go before. What are the pros and cons of producing multiple genres under one alias? Well, most of the producers will tell you there is not much pros to it. But for me, I guess like I like this kind of music a lot, and I think it all comes together. And then when you do like a show or playing live somewhere, it kind of helps you a lot because you're playing your own music, but different genres that like fit different people or different areas. So like some people would like house, I'll play house. People would like hard house or speed house, and I will play that. And it kind of helps me when I play, and I noticed what people like more out of me, in that sense. And the cons, I guess, it is like kind of harder to like step in the scene with a lot of genres. Because once you're doing one thing, like let's say house, some people love house but hate speed house, or love dubstep and hate trap. I don't know. Like there is like most of the people that listen to one genre, like they don't like other genres. So it's very hard to step into the scene with doing tons of genres. It's just what I like. Especially I get myself bored if I do same thing over and over and over again. So I mix it up a little bit. I guess that's the pros. Most of the pros are basically making me interested still. Also developing more skills, and sometimes even combining those genres together. That's about that. So what's a good way you stay inspired? Well, I listen to a lot of music, new and old. I think a good way to stay inspired is to listen to the classics and the new stuff and see how they can combine together. The way I produce is usually with with the classics in mind, kind of like respecting the old but bringing in the new kind of thing. What's something now you wish you knew early on? I think I'll be honest with you, nothing, because you kind of need to go through stuff by yourself to actually really know them.
Make your music stand out, get more views, and way more engagement. Bring your music to life. Get Music Visualizer. In every format, even for social media. Get started today. The link is in the description.
And I think my journey was kind of like understanding how to work with a team, and how to like kind of be friendly with people that's in your team, but still have them working with you, and more like staying more business minded, I guess. Saw you live in Brave Tour in Montreal, and the set was incredible mixing drum. Thank you very much, man. I can go sometimes with my set from 130 BPM to 200. So it's a fun journey. I know not everybody like it, but it's kind of like, I hope that I get like people will like me for what I am. And I think it's a good advice for everybody to try to be something. Don't lie to yourself. Don't try to be something that you're not. Just try to be really, really, really dedicated to yourself and what you like, really, even if sometimes it doesn't work. You're about to go into your creative process. Would love to hear more about it. So I think it starts off with just getting inspired by old or new music. And inspired, it can be everything. It can be a sound of a kick, a sound of a snare, a way a drop drops, a way the breakdown sounds like, getting inspired from a vibe of a track, like just how it makes you feel, or a feeling even, if you're sad, or mindset behind speed house production. So the mindset, I think that, like, let's finish with before what I started, is I think you can get inspired by anything. It's not exactly only for music. You can get inspired by what you feel in the same day. You can be sad, which is really, for me, it's at least really hard to produce when I'm sad or not happy. But from any emotion, or like I said before, just listening to something that makes you feel a certain way. So getting inspired and trying to make somebody else feel the same way you felt. When do you know the track is finished? I feel like a lot of new producers have to struggle, as any track could always be enhanced. When is the time to stop? It's a very good question. Every track can be enhanced, but it's important to know. It's kind of like an abstract drawing, It could be great, and then you throw a little bit more paint on it, and it looks terrible. So, not like sometimes, and like I said, especially in the front to back track, sometimes less is much more, and you just need to, maybe if you're not sure, so just show it to people and get some feedback from other people, and other producers that you work with or know. It's always good to get feedback. And actually, like, they would probably tell you immediately, listen, you need a stronger drop, or you need that sound doesn't sound good, But if you like it, there's no reason of trying to make it better and make you, unless you know for a fact it needs to be better. But how do you know? That's the question. Yes? You just, at one point, you need to say, okay, this track is done, and I'm sending it to distribution or to the label or whatever, and I'm not touching it again. And this is a decision you have to make with yourself. And nobody can really make you feel that. I don't know how to explain it, but you feel when a track is done, What else we have here? Going back to the mindset of behind speed house, I personally think speed house is kind of like a fast bass house. So it's all about the bass line. So everything kind of chases the bass line in the end. And a good way to, like, the creative process of speed house is like finding a good bass sound or a good pattern that kind of works, or a really dope vocal that's kind of makes the track run. I'm really inspired by vocals, so vocals, I would definitely pitch them up always, and it will make me feel in a certain way, and I will try to build around that. You know what I mean? What other question can I answer you guys? Ask away. Let's go back to the track a little bit, maybe. I will show you how this sounds without all the stuff I did. just. This is without.
They call a motherfucker John Doe.
And with.
They call a motherfucker John Doe. They call a motherfucker John Doe. They call a motherfucker John Doe.
Not most. I wouldn't say most. I've mentioned it before with the front to back. Most of them I will try to get from old school sample packs, which don't really exist anymore in Splice. Do you find yourself using Massive mostly for sound design? I would use Massive mostly for basses that are like more old school kind of inspired, I guess. And then when I need like a stab or like a bass sound, kind of bass top or mid sound, I will use Serum. Who are some of your favorite artists right now, old and new? For sure, I can mention 100% Joyride is my best friend, and I think me and him we go so long back. I know his music mentality, and I think he's one of the most interesting artists out there. Old producers, I would definitely say Prodigy, Chemical Brothers are amazing. Basement Jaxx. I love Noisy, I always love them. A lot of drum and bass producers. What else I can think about? What processing do you have on the master? So these both tracks are literally don't have really nothing on the master. As I mentioned it before also, I make sure that I get to a certain mix that I like already, and then I just push it a little bit and limit it in the end. Some masters will have more, but I try not to go as far as for changing the sound, like EQs and stuff. Will we ever get a collab from you and Jared? Maybe you will. Who knows? Me and him work in the same. He's got a studio here next to me. What other stuff can I answer you guys before we end for this time? Maybe I should show you some of my new tracks that are coming. We talked about Bass House. One second. Let me show you some new tracks. How do you know when you're adding too much drum elements? It's a good question. I think, one second. I think you need to know what you're adding, not just add for the sake of adding. Like, I need a kick, a hat, whatever, an open hi-hat. Just go with that, And there are rules to this kind of mentality, and you need to know what you're adding. Could you give us a tip on what after the track is finished and how about contacting labels? So, it's best if you know somebody from the label, of course, really. But just make a Dropbox link and a SoundCloud private link. And this is how they like to get it. You send it over to them, not mentioning your life story. They just want to see the track, what kind of style it is, and an easy way to contact you back. So this is a speed house track. Oops. On the way, no. is not the right one. My bad, guys. It's not the right track. That's the right one. Okay, that's a good question actually, and I think I will go over it with actually showing it. So, let's say I take a snare. Okay, it's a good example. Okay, so 1 second, let me answer before that another question. Any practice organization workflow tips that make a big difference for you? Yeah, I used to be super disorganized, and now I just make sure I organize all my stuff. And I have groups of the tracks and everything, and I know what I do every day. So I have like, I'm writing for myself today, working on this track, and tomorrow I'm working on making a video, and this is very important to organize yourself, to know what you're doing every day. As a beginning artist, how did you approach marketing? First I took, you kind of need to make the research, right? So you look at other artists, what they do, and you see what works for them, and you take your best qualities and you try to use them as much as you can. I always love to do myself the graphic design and videos, and I made sure I got as much experience as I could in that, so that would be my value, how to do it. With the snare, how do you know how to EQ? So I make 3 channels, right? And the snare is divided for 3 ways. You have the bottom snare. So bottom of the snare will be here. That's the bottom of the snare. You see where this is the low. Bottom. Middle. Let's do this. Middle of the snare. Now in this case the snare is high, so the middle will be also a little bit high. And let's take the top. Now I can use this like kind of like a multi-band. Do less highs, more highs, less middle, more middle. You see what I mean? You have better control of this of the snare. You can get to something different. When do you think someone should rebrand? Well, I think once you get to a point when it's like not interesting for you anymore, doesn't matter what anybody else says. If it's not interesting for you anymore, it's you should rebrand. You need to need to keep yourself interested at all times. In the game means that you are in with yourself in the game. You like it. So focus on the consecutive fundamentals of each exactly. When you do the snare, you focus on each one separately and together. And now I can do this also. I can definitely fade them out. Now if I want, I can also pitch this down so I have different. What's my focus as an artist after post-COVID? I think I want to like continue what I'm doing consistently and making more videos, more music videos, more music releases, consistent releases, an EP, definitely an album. So I think that's what I'm gonna go and like just continue the grind exactly as I did before. I'm already at the point of my life that I kind of like. You can get phase issues with the trick, but if you separate the frequencies, you won't have phase issues. As long as they're separated enough, you know. Each of them is a different, if you can see the EQ here. To bounce off the question, if you have phase issues, do you just flip the phase around, causing the phase issues? Essentially, if you have phase issues, it means that they are touching each other, the frequencies. So it means you're on the same kind of frequency section. You can just move it a little bit and you will get rid of, like, if I have a phase issue with this one, I will just move it. You know, I actually moving the phase of it, the delay or something. Like, usually I would just do this and delay one of them. What else can you learn from me? Well, let's see in the future, you know. Get yourself updated in my Instagram and my Twitter. I always post if there is something. You can always get my sample packs in my website, alertmusic.com. You can get a lot of the kicks I use, a lot of my sounds I use, serum presets, massive presets. Everything is there. I have tons of products. I think we are good for this time, guys. I'm really thankful for you guys to be here and actually listening and being a part of this workshop. I hope I can do it again in the future. Thank you very much. See you next time.